It all began with quiet murmurs in the background, whispers that slowly grew into a storm no one could ignore. Lexi Hull's name started circulating around front offices, her future suddenly uncertain. She wasn't injured, she wasn't clashing with teammates, and she certainly wasn't a locker room problem. But in the ever-changing landscape of the WNBA, being labeled available is often just one phone call away from being gone. Insiders say the Indiana Fever were exploring ways to add perimeter scoring, believing they needed more offensive punch to complement Caitlyn Clark's floor vision. Hull, while respected for her defense and relentless hustle, hadn't quite become the offensive weapon the front office hoped she would be. So when word got around that a Western Conference team, possibly Phoenix or Dallas, was interested, trade talks quietly began. On paper, it was simple, a depth-for-depth swap, maybe a late draft pick attached. Routine business. But then, just as fast as it started, the entire conversation disappeared. Phones went silent. Emails stopped. Calls weren't returned. There was no press leak, no rumor follow-up, just dead air. Inside Indiana's offices, confusion set in. What had changed overnight? Who killed the deal? And that's when the whispers pointed in one direction. Caitlyn Clark's management team. To understand how something like that could even happen, you first need to understand the scale of Caitlyn Clark's reach. She's not just a player. She's an industry. A full-scale brand machine operated by XL Sports Management and backed by some of the biggest companies in the world. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, Wilson, and Hy-Vee. Every appearance, every commercial, every post-game quote is coordinated, filtered, and aligned with her image. She's got PR strategists monitoring trends, analysts tracking fan engagement, and corporate partners who see her as the future of women's basketball. That's power, real market-shifting power. So when someone in her circle caught wind that Lexi Hull, one of Clark's closest teammates, might be shipped out of Indiana, alarm bells went off. Lexi wasn't just another player to Caitlyn. The two had chemistry, the kind you can't fake. Fans adored their interactions. Media outlets captured their bond, and social clips of them laughing during practice or doing post-game interviews together often went viral. They were wholesome, likable, and marketable, a PR dream team that represented the Fever's clean-cut revival image. To Clark's management, trading Hull wasn't a basketball decision. It was a branding mistake. Losing Lexi meant losing part of the image that fans had grown attached to, the balance that made Caitlyn's meteoric rise feel grounded and genuine. And so, according to multiple insiders, calls were made, quietly, respectfully, but firmly. Those calls, reportedly from Clark's management team, raised concerns with Indiana's ownership, and almost instantly, the trade was dead. No announcement, no explanation, just gone. To some, it was an act of loyalty. To others, a display of influence that stretched far beyond the hardwood. Inside the Fever organization, the fallout was immediate. Head coach Stephanie White, known for her straightforward, disciplined approach, had been focused on basketball, not branding. She wanted the freedom to rotate her roster, to experiment, to fix the defense and strengthen the bench without interference. To her, the Lexi Hull trade was minor, necessary even, but once the decision was overturned, the message was clear. Certain players were untouchable. White didn't say anything publicly, but insiders described her frustration as visible. Her control over rotations had just been challenged by forces outside the locker room. Owner Steve Simon, however, saw things differently. He wasn't just managing a basketball team anymore. He was managing an empire. Caitlyn Clark had elevated the Fever's value beyond anything the franchise had seen in years. Ticket sales exploded, jersey sales broke records, and national coverage that used to ignore the team was now a nightly feature. When one player brings that level of attention, every business decision starts running through her orbit. Simon wasn't about to risk anything that might disrupt that magic. And so, the quiet rule became understood. Whatever keeps Caitlyn comfortable keeps Indiana winning, at least in the headlines. But behind the scenes, a new dynamic was forming. Assistant coaches and players began feeling the shift. It wasn't outright favoritism. It was something subtler, a sense that some players had influence others could never touch. Some saw it as progress. a sign that women's basketball had finally found a superstar powerful enough to shape her environment like LeBron or Steph Curry. Others saw it as dangerous, a slippery slope that could erode the balance between teamwork and celebrity. Inside the locker room, reactions were split. Those close to Caitlyn admired the move. They saw a young star using her influence not for personal gain, but to protect a teammate. That kind of loyalty, they said, builds trust. It proved Caitlyn wasn't just about fame. She cared about the people beside her. But not everyone shared that sentiment. For some veterans, it felt like the rules had changed. They respected Clark's talent, but worried about what it meant for the team's future. When one player's management team can quietly stop a trade, it creates an invisible hierarchy, and everyone knows it. Through it all, Lexi Hull stayed silent. She didn't post cryptic messages, didn't hint at anything online, didn't speak a word about the rumors. Instead, she did what she always does, worked harder. She doubled down on defense, started hitting shots again, and her energy became infectious. Slowly, her minutes returned. Clark began praising her in interviews, calling her the team spark. The Keep Lexi movement started trending among fans. Hashtags, posts, fan art. Suddenly, the story had flipped. What began as quiet trade chatter had turned into a redemption arc powered by public love and one superstar's backing. By late season, even analysts were taking notice. Indiana simply played better, with Lexi Hull on the floor. Her intensity on defense, her willingness to do the dirty work. It all started showing up in the box score and beyond. Whether by coincidence or consequence, the message had landed. Lexi Hull wasn't going anywhere. But this story didn't just stop with one player staying put. It changed how the Fever operated. Behind the scenes, the organization became cautious. Every roster move, every public comment, every sponsorship tie-in suddenly had to pass through a new layer of awareness. Marketing teams started coordinating with Clark's PR representatives. Press releases were vetted for tone and phrasing. Even social media captions were double-checked for consistency with the Clark brand. It wasn't paranoia, it was adaptation. Caitlyn's influence had become so large that the team's identity was now tied directly to hers. And the WNBA